So, hi. Today we're going to have a little chat about getting to know anxiety and having a look at low mood and low mood depression, just so we get an idea of what it actually is. I've seen lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of bits on the internet over the time, that on Facebook, social media, that say never give up and don't do this and boost yourself and things like that. But they don't really go into any sort of detail as to what anxiety actually is and what it does to a person with anxiety and what other people can do to actually help that person. So this is just a sort of an intro to it, really, to show you what goes on and what you can do possibly, and what the other people can do that are surrounding this person at the time. Before we start, I should say that I'm not a doctor or anything. I don't do any sort of medical stuff with this. This is just from pure experience, and at the moment, given the time and what we're doing and what's going on at the moment, I think that it might help some people that are going through this and that might need to know some vital information and something that can help them. Even if they don't suffer from anxiety, this can be good to sort of clear your mind a little bit, to make things more into perspective, and give you a starter for how you can get some help and what could possibly help you as a person. Any advice and suggestions in this video are taken at face value. You need to do your own research, really, and get some information that is suitable for you, whether that be through a medical professional or through some counselling or something through that. And we also need to say at this point that no one person is the same as another person. So no two people are the same. They can have different symptoms. It can be experienced in different ways. There are tons of anxiety symptoms and tons of way of how it manifests itself, and it depends on the experiences of the person that possibly has it. How their lifestyle is and what they've been doing, how they think as a person, and their own feelings and emotions, etc. So yeah, let's have a look at what's going to be happening through this video. So first of all, we're going to talk about what anxiety is and what actually sort of can trigger some of these things and can make some of these changes to your body and your brain, and what actually happens during that process. Again, this is subjective and will be different for other people. But yeah, it should give you an idea of what's actually going on. Then the next part is what it does to me personally as a person. So you'll get to know how, if you're a friend of mine, you'll start to understand some of the things that I've maybe done in the past or said, or possibly how I've felt through different experiences. This part is more personal to me, but it can help for some other people who have thought, oh yes, that might be important. So I left it in just to sort of give you an idea of how it can sort of not help that person at the time. Then we've got a section on what I can do to help, or what you can do to help. So some of these things needs to be done by the person that experiences the anxiety, and some of the things need to get done by the people that are around them. And we'll talk about those separately as we go on. And I've left it to the last point, but panic attacks. Panic attacks are different to just having normal anxiety, and we'll get to why that is the case and what can happen during a panic attack, what that person experiences, and what you as a bystander, or even you having a panic attack, can possibly do and potentially help you a little bit to get through that and to deal with the aftermath. Some of these things last for a little while, as we'll get to. So it's important to have something that you can occupy yourself, or something that can help. And if other people around you know that as well, it can be more helpful, as opposed to people running around like headless chickens or something like that. So yeah, let's get to it. So, what is anxiety? For the most part, it's not something that hurts, like having someone like twist your arm, getting punched or kicked or slapped or something like that. It's more of a longer lasting, varying feeling or ache that can come and go, and is very sort of non-descriptive. It can sometimes feel like weight bearing, usually on your shoulders or back, or it can just be a bit more different than that. It can be a feeling, an emotion, or something that doesn't quite seem right sometimes. So anxiety, low mood can come and go, and people always ask sort of where it comes from. And unfortunately, the answer to that is it can vary, and it can be complex or through simple things. Unfortunately, it's linked to the sort of part of the brain that wants to fight or flight. This system that most of us come to know as, you have to sit there and fight or you have to run. It's that symptom that comes up that sort of tricks you and makes you startle you out of a situation and tells you to do something really quick, really now, and your body feels like it has to do something, and that comes from your brain and from a very specific part of your brain that looks after that and sort of keeps an eye on your surroundings and what's actually going on. And when this part of the brain gets engaged, things that are happening can seem skewed and the focus of that person changes a lot. The response that brain sends out, as I say, can be very sort of linear. It's very like, do this now or else, you're in trouble. You're in trouble, you're scared, you're in danger. You need to change what you're doing right now and do something. That's the part that I think most people get that scares them the most, is that they can feel it. This can sort of be happen when you have a panic attack, but we'll get to that in a little bit later as to what actually happens during that. Now, I should say that this can be different for those with, ADD, ADHD, autism, etc. But for the most part, this is where it starts to happen. It is sort of linked to sensory information, and possibly sensory overload can play a part as well. Anxiety, low mood can occur from our senses, either as a single one, so like, you see something, you hear something, or you smell something. It's like that thing where you smell something burning, you have to go and have a look. And the sort of anxiety, you feel like, oh, there's something wrong here, and it's sort of like that, but more in depth. It's not as clean cut and not as easy to be explained straight away within a few seconds. And it can be a combination of those senses or sensory things such as touch, sight, hearing. Anything really can sort of constitute to being set it off. Low mood, on the sort of alongside that, is a little bit different, and it's quite difficult to describe how that feels and how it works. Low mood can feel as simple as like, no one likes you, or that you want to be liked or don't want to be liked, or don't want to be where you are. It also shows up as what's the point of doing things type of scenarios, which in itself can be quite hard to understand and actually get out of. In itself, low mood I wouldn't say is depression, but it depended on how long you experience this and what level you experience this at. Going back to the what's the point of doing things scenario. If a person experiences that for a long period of time, it could lead to something deeper and something worse. Low mood specifically sort of can deprive you of being happy for yourself, so not really feeling happiness. You can be content. There's there has been a lot of times where I've experienced this, and you're content, you're quite happy with the way things are, but you're just not like really happy, and there's no reason for that. It's just how your brain works at that particular time, and it's just something that can happen sometimes. It's not something that's wrong. It's just how you've experienced things in the past, and that seems to be the outcome that you have at the moment. So that happiness can sometimes go for others around you, so you might not be happy for people that you would think you normally would be. And in sort of situations like that, it can bring you down to a level that you don't want to be in or don't know how to get out of. The sort of comical part of this, though, is that the brain does know that. It does know you because you'll have something on one side of your brain that, this is silly. I should be happy for these people. It should be great. This is great. This is a good thing that's happened. It's brilliant. All that sort of exciting stuff. But the reality for you as a person could be, oh, I'm just content here. It's not really. I don't really have anything more to say on the subject or topic. But yeah, I'm just not overly joyed, and that's the thing, that the two scenario types happen concurrently side by side, even with anxiety and even with panic attacks. That can happen as well. So if you find that someone is maybe even getting into this point here, or you yourself are, it's time to have a look at some support and to see what you can do to help you. Everyone needs help at some point, so it's never too late for that. Before I go on to the next part, this part it could be a trigger for some people. Certain scenarios, things, feelings, senses, emotions trigger some sorts of anxieties. So we'll get on to this next part now, and we'll get to a little bit deeper as to what's actually going on and what goes on with me personally. So, what it does to me. So, on a good day, it can pretty much leave me alone. I feel free and light. You don't have that weight on your shoulders, and I feel that my brain can concentrate on things, and everything is sunny. You have that thing where, yep, you're focused, you can do everything. Everything works. It's that thing. It works 100% of the time. You don't ever feel like, oh, this thing hasn't worked, I can never do it again. That sort of thing. It leaves you alone, and normal day-to-day things that you have to worry about seem fine. You've got your responsibilities for you and your other people that are around you, and for the most part, most of those things that happen can happen fine, and it doesn't trigger that fight or flight scenario that's going on in the back of your brain. On those not so good days, though, I might feel weighted physically, so you feel as if you have another person sitting on top of you. You can feel like you just want to slouch. So if you sat at a desk, you just want to slouch. You just like, oh, fine, okay. And you don't particularly seem interested greatly in what's going on around you or the tasks that you need to do for that day. So for me personally, I can struggle to concentrate, and that leads you then to make mistakes in the things that you're doing. This also comes in with the feeling of dread, or that you've forgotten something that needs doing, when in reality everything is fine. It's just your sort of fight or flight response sort of tingling away, and it sort of makes you feel as if you should be doing something else, or you should be thinking or looking at something else that's more conducive to, escaping somewhere, or finishing something, or hiding, or running, or something else that in reality you don't need to do that. Everything is fine, and you've accounted for everything, and you're just doing your normal day-to-day things. So on the bad days, which don't come around very often, thankfully, it gets a little bit more complex. The problem is that your brain wants to do things. It really does want to progress and learn and carry on. That's the whole point of it. That's what we all want to do. But at the same time, on those really bad days, you really do feel as if you can't do them. You want to, but you just can't. Why you can't, I'm not really sure. You have everything there. I mean, your brain is saying, okay, go for a walk, but you just don't. Go and, I don't know, it could be anything. Go and do the washing up, you just don't. Go and do the dishwasher, you don't. Go and play on the game, you don't. So what you find is that your overall mood then can get less, and it's not very good. So things that you try and do in this scenario, as soon as you start doing them, you'll want to not do them because you're afraid that you can't do them. It sort of leads you down a path that's not very good and not very productive at all. And the problem is, once you sort of give in to that, your brain banks it and remembers it for next time, and you end up being sort of not productive for a few times before you finally break out of that cycle and actually sort of get back to normal in a sense. So that's the sort of mental state of all of those three things: the good days, the not so good days, and the really bad days. The problem with that is you have physical things going on as well. So on the good days, you might just feel a little bit tense in your head. You have muscles in the top part of your head that can tense up. So that's usually what I have. Even on those good days, sometimes it just depends what's going on, really. Other things that happen in various places, especially on the not so good days or the really bad days, simple things like needing a loo more. That's your brain's way of sort of extracting everything out of you, getting you ready into that position to sort of do something. You need to be as efficient and as nimble as possible, and unfortunately going to the loo more is something that just happens. You just need to do that. Sort of sleep disruption, so waking up very early or not going to sleep until very late can be one of those things as well. Shiver, shakes along with that, so you can feel hot flushes, cold flushes, hot and cold, pins and needles sometimes, but not usually. Your hair standing on its end, usually your arms, elbows, that sort of thing. And yeah, sort of having headaches. Usually tension headaches come from the sides of your head, from your temples, and come across because that's where your muscles are, so that's where they tense, and then it gives you headaches. And obviously along with that, sometimes you can feel nauseous because of how the rest of your body feels, and sometimes have chest pains with that because your muscles are very tense at this point, especially on the bad days. And that can happen sometimes as well during a panic attack, and that's because of the chemicals that are being released. It needs to put you in that position where you can either fight or run away. It needs to be done like now. You can't wait, and unfortunately your brain is already going along with what it thinks is the right thing to do. When you say some of those things out loud, some things are passable. It's passable, and some of it doesn't sound too bad. But when you combine those things with the mental state that your head is already in, so if you're having a not so good day or a bad day, the mental state that your head is in is not 100% logical. And so when you start having other symptoms, or when you feel other things that aren't right, you're already on that path to it not feeling very good, and it starts conflicting with what you normally think it is and what you possibly think it is now. So it's it gets into a little bit of I don't know what's going on type of scenario. It's like is this right? And unfortunately, all you can do in this particular scenario is wait. Time does tell what's going on. And in a minute, we're going to sort of deal with what you can possibly do if you're a person that experiences this, or if you're a person that is around somebody else that does experience this and that that's the case. But yeah, these symptoms, both mental and physical, can come on strong or weak. They don't have to be the same every single time. Like I said before, there's lots and lots of things that can happen, lots of physical symptoms, lots of mental symptoms, but hopefully you've got a sort of idea of what can happen. And when your fight or flight gets triggered, your body and your mind will do anything to think that it's right, in quote marks, that it needs to get to however it wants to be. Unfortunately, the anxiety side of things that's not always correct. So yeah, it's not very good sometimes. So, what can I do to help, or what can you do to help somebody else? When I first went down the path of diagnosing what was causing my anxiety, I looked at several methods that may have helped me at the time. Some of them worked and some don't. And what works for me here won't for some of you. And it's not a fault of you, it's just that everybody is different, as some people with anxiety think, and we're all just different. It's not a personal thing. It's about finding that balance of help and hindrance of that particular thing for you guys. Um, so what does work for me, or what sometimes works for me anyway. Over the past year or so, I've learned to deal with most of the anxious things going on right now. Most of my anxiety circles around sensory scenarios, or upcoming events, or certain things, certain items, certain tasks, or something. This means to me that my surroundings and the people in my surroundings, or actions that they do, can affect my response and how my fight or flight system works for me. So that for me was an important step to discover, and I think it would help other people too who possibly have anxiety, or for those around them, to help sort of roughly know what's going on, as it can help find out what you can do or what you should do, as opposed to what you shouldn't do. It will be different for most things. So the important thing is, and the first thing that anybody will always say, is that you should breathe. Breathing is the most important thing you can do. It gets you to focus solidly on what's going on your body, and it takes your focus away ever so slightly from the other things that you feel at that particular time. So basically, the way you do this is you pretty much close your eyes if you want to, and you breathe. You can use the 7-11 rule or the 6 to 10 rule if you can't manage that, and you breathe in for 7 seconds and out for 11. It doesn't matter how long you breathe in for, just remember that the out breath needs to be longer. How much longer it is, the better. The longer, the better. Depending on you as a person, if you can breathe in slower, the better. This gives your body a chance to sort of recoup some of that energy that is going around. Because at the moment, if you're having a bad episode of anxiety, if your day is not going well, you're sitting there, you've got a headache coming on, you can feel your muscles in your chest getting a bit too tight for your liking. The most important thing you can do at that point is just breathe. Slow yourself down a little bit and have a think of what's going on at that particular time. Stop what you're doing. Stop the tasks that you're doing. Stop the reading. Stop the working. Stop the watching TV. Just for a couple of minutes, and just do that breathing, and that will help you. Something else that's quite good is that when the anxiety is there and when it's coming on and you can feel it, it's important to not lose your sort of sense on where you are and what's going on right now. It's very important to sort of keep focused on what's actually going on now. And what you can do is something called grounding. And so we'll have a look at that. So here we go on the left. So this is important for people that experience anxiety more. However, it can also be important for those that just need something to sort of sit and think about. If you just want something to take your mind off of the anxiety at that particular time, this can help you do that. So we've got 5 things that you can see. So sun, people walking, a picture on the wall, a nail on the wall, a plug, a socket, a TV, anything that you can sort of see. That sorts your eyesight. 4 things you can feel. So, lift up your hand, you can feel the air coming through it, you can touch the sideboard, you can touch anything. The remote control is quite good because it's nice and bobbly with different buttons. Um, Three things you can hear. So this means that your environment, so it gets you back into that state where your environment is coming in slowly. You're slowly adding that back into perspective, and you can start to feel a little bit more focused on what's actually going on around you, as opposed to what your fight or flight system thinks is going on around you. Um, Two things you can smell, obviously. You can smell your own hand, see what soap you've got on it, or what other smells you've got on it. And then you can smell your surroundings, smell any object or anything that's around you, and then something you can taste. So yourself, you can taste yourself. If you've brushed your teeth that morning or evening, have that. If you've just eaten, taste that food, or you have something to eat. Have a very tiny thing that can help you, give you that taste and that sort of sense of, oh yes, this is good. This is good taste. So, and then the other thing is on the right, you can have a look and see how you really feel. So this is called a feelings wheel, and it's broken up into several things and several major feelings groups. So you have anger, sadness, surprise, joy, love, fear, and a lot of people will sort of do odd bits of those. So when you have anxiety, you'll sort of say, "Oh, I feel anxious," but really, what we sort of really need to figure out, especially if this is reoccurring often for someone that you know or you sort of need to figure out and home it down onto, do you feel scared? But then what type of scared do you feel? Is it a bit of helplessness, or do you feel actually frightened? Which side of it that's is a problem? Do you feel nervous? So if you're nervous about something, are you worried about it? And if it sort of helps with putting things into perspective again and making it more relevant, as opposed to just saying, "Oh, I feel scared," because feeling scared is okay, but we need to figure out why and what type it is, so we can help progress something a little bit more, and then it can be improved and it can get better with time. So other things you can do with this. So for me personally, when anxiety is coming or when it's here, it's important to have two types of things. One is to give your mind something to do or focus on. So like the five senses grounding, like trying to figure out what emotion it is you have, something like that. And that's good that that's not a person. Focusing on a person tends not to be a very good thing. It's not a bad thing, but it tends to not help as such. So, this is why it's important, if you're with someone who has anxiety, that you know these things that can help and not help. The other thing is that you can do is a thing, really. It really is a thing. So a puzzle game. The other things are about putting anxieties into perspective. So like the grounding, and that will help you sort of calm down sort of in the background. And whilst that's going on, so you can switch between doing things like word searches, puzzles, letting your mind focus on those, and then in the background your body can calm down slowly, because unfortunately sometimes it takes a while. This is not a quick fix. And the grounding for me brings things back down to earth, and it remembers what you actually feel. And yeah, it sort of reassures you that, you can think on these things properly. You can sort of help yourself a little bit more to sort of put it into perspective. And then some other things that you can do as well are things like treating yourself better. Have time for yourself. Even if it's 10 minutes extra. Go away, go play some games on your phone, go and read, go and do something else that isn't work, parents, family, kids, anything like that. Go and do something else. Go for a walk. Go and do something that you want to do, that you can tick that box and say, this is what I want to do. This is not what someone else wants me to do or what someone thinks I should be doing. This is what I want to do, and this is what I need to do to help my mental state get more, to be active more, and to think along the right lines, as opposed to getting those triggers from the wrong things in life. So, we've sort of left panic attacks to the last, because they're a little bit different to general anxiety that is present for like an hour or a day or something like that. Anxiety can come and go, and it can last a little while or not long very much at all. So a panic attack can be a little bit different, and it's pretty much goes back to that thing where a panic attack is your body and your mind basically saying, we don't like this, do something now, type of thing. And your brain has already released those chemicals, and although you can't see or hear whatever it's upset about, it's going to put you in that state where it's fight or flight. This is what happens. So your breathing can get deeper and quicker, and unfortunately that can cause pain sometimes. That's the sort of pain that you would feel if you are possibly having a panic attack or a pre-attack. So you can feel very tight in your chest, and you can feel that pounding going on, and you can get warm or sweaty, or your grip will change, your vision and hearing will get sharper, strangely, and unfortunately that causes pain. The muscles in your eyes and around your eyes can tense. The muscles on the sides of your jaw can tense, like it's similar to things like people gritting their teeth. That can happen as well. But during this panic session, this panic attack that's going on, your brain isn't sending out just those chemicals. It does other things as well. So this is important for people that are looking after someone or sitting with somebody with a panic attack. The stuff that's going on in your brain is, concentration, logical thoughts can lapse during this period of time, and unfortunately there's not a lot you can do. When you're having a panic attack, the logical stuff that's going on in your brain, such as, oh, this is silly, this is ridiculous, that is still there, but unfortunately you can't do anything about that. It's there and you're stuck with it. You can't come out of it by saying that does not work. Your logical thought is different, and people sitting next to it, or people that say, oh, panic attacks aren't real, it's silly, okay, yeah, sure, have one, and then you'll sort of understand what's actually going on in your own brain at that time. It's very strange, and to some people it can feel as if those pains are very, very thorough, and you really can feel as if there is a lot more going on than there really is in reality. And unfortunately that has a cartwheel effect. You feel this certain pain. Okay, I've got a pain in my chest. Okay, it's getting worse, I've got a headache now. It is one of those things that you get stuck in a loop, and okay, that can be cut after a little while, but unfortunately a lot of people they get stuck, and because they can feel that, a feeling is more apparent to what's actually going on around you, unfortunately. So your brain will sort of cartwheel that event and keep thinking on that side, on that track, and then you'll get into such a state. So for those, if you're sitting with someone that has a panic attack, for instance, what I would suggest you do is cuddle them and or listen. There's not a lot you can do. Grabbing the person's attention while they're having a panic attack isn't going to work. They are so focused and illogically thinking that there isn't very much that you can do to bring that person out. The problem is they have to work through that, and eventually, the chemicals in your brains change, and they will release that stuff, and then that person will start to come back to reality and things like that. But yeah, getting the grounding and the feelings thing can help. That can help as well. So yeah, these ones, go back to these. Those ones can help as well. So if you can get them to do the grounding stuff, excellent. That would be a good thing. And also looking at exactly what type of feeling they feel at that point. Maybe even make a note of it. If there's someone that is having this quite regularly, they need to make a note of it, because if they go and see somebody, they're going to want to know. And it's very helpful to have this sort of thing that is written down, and it will help you more when you come back to it. So panic attacks are not fun, and people that experience them, they sometimes say it's getting hit with something or feeling very, very overwhelmed. It's true. You feel very, very, very overwhelmed, and you feel like you can do nothing or go nowhere, and you're really in a position to not really understand what is going on around you. And then, you can imagine that. It's like being blind, deaf, at the same time, even though you're not, because those inputs are totally not working. They're cut straight away. So yeah, it is a state, but having somebody else there especially can help massively. Even if you do not talk, you don't have to talk to that person having a panic attack. You can, and it's fine, but it's not going to change anything for them. It's just not. They have to, unfortunately, when you get into that state, they work through it, and eventually it will calm down. You can definitely reassure that person, no problem with that, and panic attacks tend to not go on for too long, although they can. It just depends on the person. So, today we've had a chat about what anxiety does to me, and I know a lot of other people. There has always been, that stigma that, it's not like a physical thing, so it doesn't exist. Or, it's not like having a broken arm or something where, after 6 weeks it's fine. Okay, yeah, sure, that's all fine. But it doesn't mean say it doesn't exist. It does exist. And, if you haven't experienced it, you wouldn't know how it sort of relates to somebody or some other people or something that's going on. So remember that there's always someone that wants to listen to you. There are always services around, especially at this time of year, especially with what's going on at the moment, that can help you and can talk to you and even text message you. Have a text message conversation with one of these services. You've got Mind, you've got the Samaritans, you've got a few other services in the UK that you can talk to. You can contact me or one of those services straight away. Just remember that you owe it to yourself or to somebody else to get back on track and to get your anxiety managed. You might not be able to tell your triggers at first or to control your anxiety right now. It might just be something that is running away in your head and you think, oh yeah, okay, I can feel this, I can do this. I don't know what else to do afterwards. Talk to these people. They will put you in touch or get you referred to the right type of help. And just remember that it's not too late and not to give up. Thanks for listening. Bye.